was cool.
Okay.
Man, really cool.
So talk to us about the sit down. The last time you were here, like I said, you played Bad Dude for us, and you told us this album was coming.
Yes.
And now this album is here. So
This
tell
album
us
is
about
here. So it's finished, and I'm very proud of it. You know, the sit down really it developed over time in terms of the overall concept, but you know, it's really geared towards what you know the average. I don't want to say average, but like really what it is to be a black man in America right now. You know, Nina Simone, one of her favorite sort of conversations that I've heard her have is the idea that you know as an artist, your job is really to speak towards the time. You know what I mean? And you know, everyone doesn't have that philosophy, but I do, and I really wanted to speak on what's going on right now because if you if I talk to my dad, you know, some of the elders at this point, you know, it's been kind of crazy to me to hear from them that yeah, things still, you know, it's different, you know, it's segregation is illegal,
Right.
but things are still just as bad in some ways. So, you know, we've come far in some ways, but in some ways we've gone backwards, and in some ways we're still treading water. And because of those facts, it became important for me to really try to speak on those issues as best as I could from my perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good. I don't have no question. Jay covering everything.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to write the album from start to finish? How long would you say?
You know what? The whole, from the beginning to the end, it probably took basically a year. But when I started the process, I didn't have the sit down in mind. Like I had a couple of songs, and maybe like two of them were more in like the political, you know, realm. But I had a couple of love songs on there too. And over time, I was like, no, this doesn't work, doesn't fit. And it developed over time. So a couple of the songs were already kind of written, and then as I sort of chose that specific lane for the sit down, I started writing more and more in that vein and really thinking about exactly what I wanted to say and what issues that I wanted to cover. So, yeah.
So how many songs are on the album and how many did you take off? Because, you know, I've heard where you pile more songs on and then eventually you cut it down, and then...
Yeah, so it definitely varies for the artists, but for this one, I mean, because I don't have a huge budget and a whole lot of time, I didn't have the ability to create a whole bunch of songs and then say, oh, I'll pick this one and pick that one. So I really had to be like, I want to talk about this, that. This is my budget. I can cover about, you know, this many songs and talk about it the right way. So I only probably cut out maybe 2 songs, and I probably could have put more content in terms of, you know, what the overall idea is about. But you know, it ended up being 8 songs, and it covered the basics. There's, you know, I covered the basics that I wanted to cover. Yeah.
So in the course of that year, you had a son.
Yes.
Did your songs change at all, or did anything in the way that you were writing them change because now you're talking to him?
You know
in any
what?
way, or were you?
I really didn't, not with the sit down specifically. I am, like, as an artist, I'm always thinking, all right, what am I going to do next? So I already have a song about my daughter. I have a song about
it's
my
a nice
wife.
song. I love that song.
Right.
Yeah.
Song about my wife, and like my son doesn't have his song yet. You know what I mean? So I have some concepts, you know, up in the air about what I want to kind of say to him, and I think ultimately that song is going to be almost like a letter from me to him, saying, more or less, you know, do better than me. I think that's what I want to say. Not that I'm so awful, but like, you know, you always want your kid to like one up you. That's the goal, is to make a better person than you. So the sit down wasn't with him in mind, but I have some stuff with him in mind for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to let you perform, but during the break I asked if I could talk about something you posted on social media.
Absolutely.
Because you do talk a lot on social media.
It's not a bad thing.
Blah, 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 right?
It's
No.
not. It's not. And that particular post was heartbreaking, and I'll let you talk about it. And when Dwayne was talking to our teenagers in the opening, that's what came to mind.
Yeah, so, you know, I think my Facebook discussion was probably like 10 minutes, so to cut it down, basically one of the kids that I work with, he's a high school kid. One of his friends had passed away, he was murdered, and he wanted to go to his funeral. So I picked the kid up, took him to the funeral, and within literally 5 minutes of me dropping him off, because I didn't know the kid, so I don't want to pretend, you know what I mean? Dropped him off. Within 5 minutes of me dropping him off, I got a call to come back to the funeral because a fight had broken out in the funeral, and as a result of the fight breaking out, cops stormed the funeral home with AR-15s out. This is the gun we've all been talking about. You know, and he couldn't see his friend. And out in the middle of the street while this was all going on, it was just chaos. Like I saw the mom come out, the kids were, there wasn't actually any fighting out in the streets, but it looked like a bomb had gone off. It was just unbelievable chaos. And the bottom line is that what kid should have to deal with that? Not just the fact that you shouldn't have friends when you're 16, 17 getting shot and killed, and he's had more than one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the idea that you can't, there's not even a place of peace and respect at the funeral. And not even the fight. Like that's the one. Then two, then on top of that, when I don't care if right now we're all adults who have seen some things. If 20 cops roll in here with their guns out, we
We're
are going to
scared,
be a little
right.
bit traumatized by that. So put that on a 17-year-old, and it's a huge problem that we have to solve. And I really feel like it's on the adults ultimately, because they're children. He's
Right.
literally a child, And I know some are older, some are more mature, but no, 17. We all know how we were at 17. Idiots. You know what I mean? Maybe you were perfect.
I-
but
no,
was,
I wasn't.
I
I
was
wasn't.
a complete
I was
doofus. I'm still a doofus. But 17. You're a boy. You know what I mean? You're headed towards manhood, but you're nowhere near yet. So, yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
And when we were talking about Teddy in the
Yes.
park,
Yes.
one of the things we discussed was the fact that this boy who was going to see his friend now has all this stuff that is inside, and at 17, at 16 years old, when you're an adult, like you were saying, when you're an adult, it's hard to process it, or you don't want to process it.
Right.
And we were talking about the differences between men and women and how they process things, but as a child, how on earth do you begin to process that?
I have no idea. And all I can, I have conversations with these young men, and I try to get as much of their perspective as possible. But I certainly, the one part that I can easily understand is, that sort of classic male trait of pushing pain down. You know what I mean? We don't want to talk about our feelings because you're soft. And I still am that way to a degree that probably shouldn't be. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing I can get. It's like you push these things down, and this kid's 17 and he's seen more stuff than I have. You know what I mean? I can imagine how violence at that level would affect me, but I don't really know. I just know that it has to have affected him to some great degree, because that wasn't the first thing he's seen. This is adding up. You know what I mean? So, and the thing is, these kids really don't have a voice. You know what I mean? With someone, and they don't have anyone saying, "Hey, son, it's okay to talk about these things." You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you feel some type of way about this, and let's talk man to man, man to woman, whoever you're comfortable with, man to God, I don't care, but like talk to somebody about this, because it's going to haunt you, and you don't deserve that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I think that goes back to, I didn't say it just now, but it goes back to the leadership. There's no one for them to talk to, and
Yep.
a lot of times leadership stifles them. They tag them with this and push them here, and now all that stuff is really built in even more. So when it does explode, those people that push them to the side, like, where did this come from? And then they still target you as this is a trouble kid, a bad kid, where they just want you to hear them, and basically a lot of times they just want to cry on your shoulder, even if it's in secrecy,
Yep.
so they can get it out.
Yep.
And then I think a lot of times they can move on, and the music that you do is another channel. That's a channel for them.
Well, go ahead.
No, please.
But that's what I was thinking too. I don't even know if I said this to you, if I was just thinking it, but when you're at those schools, you just never know what you're going to trigger, not trigger, that's the wrong word, what you're going to spark in someone.
Yes.
There could have been a 4th grade little boy there that didn't realize that music was a potential outlet
Absolutely.
for him.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think. And the other thing I wanted to share with you was there's a man who's been a guest on our program. His name is Edward Harrison.
Okay.
And he makes these little documentaries. He has a program called Building Bulls.
Okay, awesome.
But the boys that he interviews, you remember Ed, he's got their stories are just heartbreaking. And he sends them to us when he's done with them. And it's like, what are you talking about? I am a grown woman and I can't handle your story that you lived.
Yeah, yeah. Humans are very resilient, which is awesome, but there's just like there are a lot of people who are just dealing with things that they shouldn't have to. And when we're talking about kids, that's like our one job as adults is to make sure that our kids are safe. That's the fundamental job.
Right.
Like, even if I don't like make a strong man or make sure he gets his education. My fundamental job is to make sure that he doesn't, get hurt. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here to protect you physically, and their friends are just dying. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, literally, it's
Yeah.
it's they're not getting the protection that they need at a literal level. So.
Can you talk about 302 Put the Guns Down at all?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
so tell us about that.
So 302 Guns Down was started, I want to say, if I messed this up, Mikey, I'm sorry. I think it was started about 3 years ago by Michaelina De Jesus. And she got me involved with them about 2 years ago. So I came in after the first year, I believe. And our overall mission is obviously 302 Guns Down is to play some kind of a role in lowering the amount of gun violence in Wilmington. The main way that we've been doing it over the past few years has been the goal is to connect people to the resources that they need to kind of change their situations. And as it is right now, right now we're planning for this following year. So I
Okay.
don't want to say exactly what we
fine.
have, but we have some. I'll say this: our main sort of change in focus, if you will, this year is the idea of really making sure that we involve the young people in the planning of our events, because we don't want to say you should come to this
Right.
and you do this and this is for you. It's like, what do you guys think? How can we get everyone involved?
That's
and having them
fantastic.
have their hands in it and having a stake in it too. You know
That's
what I
good.
mean?
That's
So
great.
that's the overall plan for this
Well,
year.
you have a place to talk about that and let us know.
Yes.
All right?
Awesome.
All
Awesome.
right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because he's friends with Mikey too.
Of course.
So,
No,
all right.
we've utilized his
Yeah.
space several times.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I'm always here to support.
No, it's greatly appreciated, plain and simple. All right.
All right.